Hi, hello, and welcome to the third episode of Release. I am so happy and honored and grateful that you've decided to spend a small fraction of your day with me. So, thank you for being here. To begin this episode, I wanted to talk about kind of how things have been working out. One of my first issues when I first decided that I wanted to do this was that I wouldn't be able to come up with any topics. It's not that I don't have an opinion on anything, because I definitely have very strong opinions, but it was more about coming up with things that were relatable, not too niche, because I tend to go into my head and create more boxes for myself. So I needed to come up with a topic that was relatable and that I could speak on for an extended amount of time. Because the topics that I was coming up with before were very specific. Like, it was like over-sexualization of Black women, or why men need to blah, blah, blah. And realistically, they were too specific. Like, the things that I was coming up with were things that could be put into one episode. And not to say that I'm not going to talk about all of the things, like the things I just mentioned, because I will definitely be speaking on them, but in a way that doesn't feel like I'm preaching, and more like I'm learning alongside the person that is listening. I hope that makes sense. But all that to say that every time I have this doubt and this fear, literally right after I press publish, like I thought it would disappear when I started kind of getting into the groove of things, and then just randomly a bunch of topics would come to me, and then I would have them to pick from. And then once I pick one, I can just write about it and blah, blah, blah. No. That was and is quite far from what actually happens, because I feel like when I'm speaking on things, it has to be right. I have to be guided to it in a way that allows me, like I said, to be able to speak on it from a wider perspective than just hurt, if that makes sense. Because I was speaking on things, or I want to speak on things like over-sexualization, because I was hurt. And it's not to say that those issues don't exist in society, because they do. It's just that I needed to approach them from a place of a central place of being. And I hope that makes sense, because I was looking at it from my own perspective, and it's like I needed to look at it from like an objective view. Like, these are the things that are happening, and I'm not gonna say you're shitty for doing this, but it's more like these are the issues that are present in life, and I'm gonna speak on them. Like I said, I'm also a student. I'm not trying to preach to anybody. And I find that every time I get into that headspace of doubt, and it starts getting closer to the day that I want to record, and closer to the release, the release date of the episode, it just clicks. And I feel like I'm going to have a story for you guys every week, or every episode drop, because I post every 2 weeks. So this week's episode is sponsored by shadow work. Like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I think, I was doing some shadow work. And for those of you who don't know, your shadow is kind of the hidden part of you. It's the part that is traumatized and hurt, and it's like part of you that you kind of push down because you feel like you just can't approach it. And sometimes your body represses these kind of things to make you able to just survive, because sometimes you're not ready for the pain that you're not ready to conceptualize or articulate the pain that you're feeling. You just want to live your life. And so shadow work is kind of pulling all of that shit out of the depths of your soul and kind of laying it out in front of you and saying, okay, these are the issues that I struggle with, and I'm picking them apart to be able to heal that broken part of me. So obviously my whole self can heal, and I can move forward, and I can make space, make room for the beauty that is approaching in my life. Because in reality, you're holding so much space within yourself for your pain, and you don't even realize it. But anyway, that is your shadow. So shadow work for me is normally journaling, but it can be a lot of things. Shadow work can be writing a gratitude letter, or writing a journal prompt, or going to therapy, or whatever the case may be. If you're interested, you can Google a bunch of ways that work for you, because what works for me may not work for you. But I was writing on this prompt, and the prompt was, how can I cultivate more calm and patience when I begin to feel myself growing impatient with internal and external circumstances? And that is exactly what I'm struggling with right now. I feel like right now there are so many things happening outside of us that we can't control. A lot of pressures are being put on us because of things like COVID. And it's like all of these things are happening outside of us, and we still have our personal lives to deal with. It feels like there is so much on all of our plates. For me personally, I know I'm feeling it, and I've talked to people and they said that it's a lot too. So I'm going to make a generalized statement. I don't like making generalized statements, but I'll make a generalized statement that right now is a rough time for a lot of people. And it's like, as soon as one thing feels like it's being fixed, something else comes up. And it's like, fuck, I can't even get my footing in my own life. But I have to kind of try to regulate all of these other things that are happening around me. And I find when I feel that way, I shovel myself into this worry wormhole. Like I shovel myself, I keep saying shovel, I don't know why the fuck I decided to say shovel, but I push myself into this paralysis of worry. I literally start thinking about one thing, and then it snowballs, and then I'm literally just having a breakdown. And if you were to sit and ask me, oh, why are you crying? Like, are you okay? I wouldn't know how to answer you, because it's like, there's so much shit. How do I pinpoint exactly what is making me cry? So when this kind of feeling, this kind of constant anxiety was at its worst, was when I first started going to therapy. And every time, like after my session was done, she'd ask me, like, do you want to book an appointment for next week? Or do you want to space it out, or do you want to, contact me when you feel like you need that support? And I would always pick the last option because I felt like I can handle this shit. This is shit I've been handling for my whole fucking life. I got it, girl. Like, you don't even need to worry about me. I'm cool. But then when I got to that small thread, that last thread, that small point, that last, I keep saying small and last, but that last point of desperation, I would reach out to her and then I would start listing all of this shit. She's like, okay, so hi, how are you? So this is definitely not relevant, but when I go into her office, I take off my mask, she takes off her mask, and she has like a little glass thingy, COVID, a little glass thingy protecting her, and then we talk. I feel like it's more personal. If I have my mask on, then maybe she won't be able to hear me because I tend to speak really quietly. So when I would list all of these things to her, I could see on her face, it's like her frown would deepen, and she'd be like, if anybody was dealing with even one of the things that you're dealing with, they would be overwhelmed. I can't imagine how you feel with all of these things happening. And the first time I came to her with this long list of shit that was happening, she recommended that I started using grounding exercises to help me stay in my body. And the first time, I felt so fucking stupid. Like, I remember this was a point when I was having breakdowns everywhere. Like, I was having breakdowns after class. I was having breakdowns at the mall. Every place that has like a secluded bathroom, I was having breakdowns there. And that's just to say that this comes in this time. Like, I was on the bus and this comes in this time. I mean, it was around this time of me having constant breakdowns. And that's important because I was on my way home. I was on the bus. Shout out public transit. Anyway, I was on the bus and I felt, because I was used to the way that a breakdown would feel, I felt this like darkness in my chest. I felt this heaviness, this pain, and I knew it was coming, and I was on the bus and I was like, fuck, I can't cry. To hold in the tears till I get home, I can't cry. And then I started doing the exercise that she recommended, which was kind of like making two fists and just kind of finding ways to feel as if I exist. Like, try to put myself in the moment and kind of be in that moment at that time. And I was so frustrated. I think the reason why I didn't cry on the bus is because I was so pissed. I was like, what the fuck am I doing? I was like, why the fuck do I need to do this? Obviously, I know that I'm in my body. This shit is dumb. But now I realize that I was and am dealing with some tough shit, because at that point I was like, nobody else has to do this. Why do I? But then I realized that I have to develop these tools and I have to work twice, 3 times, 4 times as hard as other people to keep myself afloat. And it sounds kind of sad to say, but that's the reality of it. And I had to recognize that my reality was different from other people. And when you kind of try to bend reality to your wishes, it is much harder for you to exist happily because you are resisting. Once you stop resisting and you just let things flow, you realize life gets a whole lot easier. Yeah. So when when I first realized or had this epiphany, as I like to call them, when I first had this epiphany, I wanted to kind of find other ways to ground myself. The exercises that she gave me are good, but they needed to I needed to find something that worked for me that I didn't feel stupid doing, basically. Because I still felt, even though I understood, in the moment, I still felt dumb doing it. And this is kind of when I stumbled across the act of mindfulness, which is the act of being. It's the act of being able to sense your surroundings and kind of not manipulating anything around you, just sitting down and chilling and vibing, just existing within yourself. That was probably a really bad definition of mindfulness, but yeah, it's a way to quiet down your mind and see things from an objective perspective. And like I said before, I need to see things from an objective perspective. See, divine Anyway, guys, I literally want to name this podcast Divine Guidance because of the way that things keep working out. But anyway, I like the name Release. So mindfulness is kind of a way to vacate your body just for a second. It's like transcending the human form for a minute, a second, a millisecond, whatever. And at first, when I first tried it, the first thing that I wanted to do, or the first way that I saw was meditation. There obviously, like I said before, there are other ways. There are always other ways to approach. And by before, I'm referring to like with shadow work. There's always other ways to do things if you're interested in them. So first time I tried to do meditation. And when I say meditation, like I said, there are many ways. I was doing the typical sit down, hand on your thigh, doing a specific mudra. Mudra is like a finger positioning. And I would sit. And the first time I did it, I think I meditated for less than 5 minutes. I definitely didn't feel any better afterwards. And my thoughts were all over the place. And I felt so defeated. I felt like an imposter. I was like, why the fuck am I doing this? This isn't it. But then I kept trying and I kept not succeeding. But then I realized, just like before, when I had to change my mindset, I realized that I wasn't doing things my way. I had to come to a way that worked for me. So I started small. I tried to point out the things that were on my mind. What are the thoughts that are running through my mind while I'm meditating? What are the things that I am trying to control that are out of my control? What am I wasting energy on worrying about? And I tried to focus that energy kind of back to myself and focus on what I can control. And in that moment, I don't need to worry about those thoughts. I focus on my breath. Deep inhale through the nose, out through the mouth, and you focus on your breath. And when you focus on your breath, the thoughts kind of fade away. And sometimes the thoughts don't go away. And this is why I kind of started journaling. And journaling, I feel like, gets a bad rap, but I communicate through words. We all communicate through words, but I find that my thoughts are better and easier to articulate when I write them down. So that's kind of why I started writing poetry, and I use my notes app a lot. So I have a physical journal, which I really enjoy, and I have a note journal, which I also really enjoy because it's very convenient. I have it as like a pinned note in my notes, so it's always, so it doesn't get lost. It's right up at the top of the important notes that I have. And that helped me to quiet my thoughts because I was writing out the thoughts I was feeling. And when you start to journal, you don't need to make it all fancy. You can just say whatever. Be like, I was having a shitty fucking day. Blah, 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 blah. And now the thoughts are kind of out of your head in the sense that they're not your main focus anymore. So you've gotten them out. Now you can sit down, try your best to focus on your breath. Yeah. And I've seen this thing all over. I saw it on Pinterest first. No, I saw it on TikTok first. And then I saw it on Pinterest. And it's this phrase, I don't chase, I attract. What belongs to me will simply find me. And the reason I bring that up is because the universe, God, Allah, the divine source, whatever you call your reigning, how did I say reigning? But your Godhead figure, the figure that is above all beings, is listening. They're listening and they are waiting for you to surrender control of your life. Because you don't know what your life holds. And you stressing about things all the time definitely is not going to change what's going to happen. And that Godhead, that being, knows what you want, and they know what you need, and they know what you're going to get. And having this desperate energy of always worrying about things and always thinking about it and stressing gives off this, your energy becomes so desperate and so frownsy. For all those who aren't Jamaican, that means like gross. Like it's not giving. It's not. And it shows that you're not ready for what you're asking for, because the best way to kind of ask, I guess, for something is to let your intentions be known and then let it go. That sounds, I say it like it's easy. I know it's not easy. But you let it go and you focus on, again, the things that you can control, while the universe, God, etc., does their work. And I found that I needed to be mindful and stay in that mindful state of being. It had to become a state of being for me to successfully be able to meditate and successfully be able to, I guess, elevate, quote unquote, my spiritual practices. And the first way that I found that I was being mindful, or the first way that I was practicing mindfulness, was in the way that I present my energy to other people. So I had to be honest with myself. I'm like, okay, what triggers me? How do I normally react when someone triggers me? How can I change that? Do I need to take this person out of my life? Do I need to take a second, breathe, come back to them? What do I need to do in order to not allow my triggers to trigger me, basically? And like I said before, the breath, the deep breath, breathing is so important because it helps you to calm down. It helps you to kind of reset your system. It's like a little bodily timeout. And then you're like, okay, now I'm ready to go. And I found that with my ex, he triggered the fuck out of me. Specifically after our breakup, he triggered the absolute fuck out of me. And I let him do it. I let him do it, and I let him get a rise out of me. And it's like, as soon as someone knows that they can get a reaction from you, they're going to keep pushing that shit. They're going to keep doing it because they know that, she'll give me, because even when you're arguing with someone, that adrenaline rush, your body can't differentiate between a good, I quote unquote, good adrenaline rush and bad adrenaline rush. Your body's just like, oh, all of these feelings. It's like a head rush. A lot of girls, I'm not going to say girls, a lot of people love to argue. And they aren't just, sometimes they really are arguing for the sake of arguing because it's an adrenaline rush. And they may leave feeling shitty, but in the moment, it's like, I don't know, it's kind of the same reason that people jump out of planes. Like, they can die, but it's like that human need to like go fast or do shit. I'm sorry for clapping. Go fast or do shit just to feel it within that moment. So I had to think about it. I was like, do I want this? I'm not going to call him any names. This person to trigger me. Am I going to allow this person to trigger me? Like, we're not on the same level energetically, and I'm not going to stoop to your level, basically. So for a conversation, over the phone, over text, don't be like me. Please do not give them a piece of your mind. It doesn't matter how badly they deserve it. It doesn't matter how much you're like, this bitch had it coming. Don't do it. Don't do it. They don't deserve it. What I do personally is, as I said, I love my notes app. So I write out the thoughts. I don't want to keep the thoughts inside of me. I write them down. I give the piece of my mind to my notes, basically. And then I either open a new note or I delete it depending on what the situation is. Actually, no, delete it. You got it out, you can delete it. And then I write a new note. I write something that doesn't. Okay, I'm a very, very sensitive person. So I don't want anyone to come at me with any kind of aggressions or accusations or blah, blah, blah. I don't like it. So I try to approach people in that same way. If I want to be approached with love and grace and understanding, I'm going to approach another human with grace, love, and understanding. And obviously that's not easy. So that's why you put your little notes in your notes. And I find that when I would let it rip, I'm like, fuck you, I let it rip, I would feel a lot of regret and guilt. because I could have handled it better. And even if they deserved it, even if it was justified, I'd feel like shit after. I'd feel like I could have, instead of saying you're a fucking good for nothing person, you can say, that you aren't expressing an energy that I appreciate. You aren't being the person that I want to keep in my circle. So this relationship, this interaction is not for me, basically. You don't have to say that, obviously, but I'm just saying, like, that's, you rephrase the thought that you're basically still saying it, but you're saying it in a calmer way. Don't let them see you flinch ever. Like, you're rock. You may be melting on the inside, but you're solid. And I am learning to find gratitude in the shittiest moments. I haven't even been listing the points in chronological order yet. But in order for us, let me do it now. In order for us to be here now, to be present in the moment, we have to be mindful. We have to understand that people are gonna fuck us over. And we have to choose how to approach them to make our space, our moment, better than what they expect to happen, if that makes sense. And then my third point is don't chase, attract. And then this fourth point is to find gratitude in the shittiest of situations. And I know, like I said before, the present can be so frustrating. I literally fell a few days ago, and it was so embarrassing. I literally fell on a chunk of fucking ice. But anyway, I fell in front of my Uber. Oh my God. Anyway, when I'm in pain, like that physical pain or emotional pain, I try not to bring attention to it. So he asked if I was okay. And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. But my arm was hurting. I fell on my wrist and I was like, fuck. My arm is kind of hurting. Went to the doctor and he's like, yeah, you didn't break it, but you pulled out your shoulder when you kind of pushed your hand out when you fell. So I fucked up my wrist and I pulled out the tendon in my shoulder. And he's like, yeah, there's no medicine for it. Take a Tylenol, take an Advil and a Aleve, whatever. And it's supposed to heal. And this man really looked at me and said, it's supposed to heal in 3 weeks. Try not to use it. Sir, it's my right hand. I am right-handed. How the fuck am I supposed to not use my right hand? And he's like, yeah, it's probably going to be really painful. So the Advil, Aleve is going to help. But anyway, I'm trying to find gratitude even within this situation. Because when it first happened, I was like, shit, my hand, I can't write. I can't do the script for the show or the podcast, blah, 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 blah. And I gave myself 5 minutes. Give yourself 5-10 minutes and just wallow in your pain. Just feel pity for yourself. Be like, oh, woe is me. I'm so sad. But as soon as that 5 minutes is over, I was cultivating, I was trying to find the lessons that came from this. I was kind of putting a lot of pressure on myself. The universe has been telling me to be patient with myself. And obviously other things. But you have to remember that everything works out for your highest good. That's what I had to remind myself. After that 5 minutes was up in my head, I was like, everything happens for a reason. Everything works out for my highest good. So for me to kind of align with that, I had to be, like I said, that desperate, always thinking about it, frustrating, worrying energy makes the universe be like, okay, no. Because I don't want to break. Oh, heaven forbid. I don't want to hurt myself in vain, if that makes sense. Like, I don't want to miss a lesson and then have to go through something even more painful to learn that same lesson. So that all to say that I understand the pain of a shitty present, because I am currently experiencing a shitty present, which is not shitty, unfavorable, not aligned with what I want or what I thought my beginning of March would look like, basically. And I find that a lot of people struggle with gratitude. They kind of not struggle with gratitude, but they struggle with finding the good in the shitty. It's kind of like shadow work. It's like people would ask me, why would you dig up the shitty parts of your life? Why would you make more pain for yourself? But honestly, I don't see it as making more pain for myself. I see it as healing. I see it as developing the tools to be able to know my weaknesses and to be able to constantly be working on those weaknesses until they become a strength and until I can move on to work on another thing. And obviously this can be and is very painful, and sometimes it feels like it's less than ideal, but I feel like it's really, 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 I can keep saying reallys forever, but a lot of really very, very important that you allow yourself that space to heal. And even healing in itself feels quite unpleasant. And I find that a lot of people struggle when, not a lot of people, we all struggle because healing is painful. And this isn't an episode on healing. I definitely want to talk about healing, but in another episode, maybe next episode. Well, I'm not going to say that because, like I said in the beginning, I'll say one thing and then the next episode is going to be on a totally different thing because I get led in another way. But all of this to say that life is a journey in itself. And it is always the present. Focusing on the future, you're ignoring the present, means you're literally ignoring your life because you're looking ahead. You're always looking ahead and you're never looking in front of you. I like that. You're always looking ahead and you're never looking in front of you. But take a second, take a moment, take a breather to just be within yourself and look around yourself and find. Actually, I'm going to ask you guys to do a little thing for me. Find 10 things. Find 10 things that you are grateful for in your life, no matter how shitty. And I know for some people this list may be so easy, and for other people it may feel like you're literally pulling teeth, like it's so painful. But please, literally DM me. If you have my number, text me. Like, I want to see what your 10 things are, like what your list of things to be grateful are. Because once you put yourself in that space of gratitude, that's when the universe really likes when you, and when I say universe, again, it can be that divine being, that Godhead, that you, that all-knowing being that you have within your spiritual practice. They like when you say thank you because you have accepted the blessing for what it is. It could be a blessing in disguise, but you're accepting what it is that you have right now, and you are loving, quote unquote loving, because sometimes we don't love it, but you are aware, let's use aware of what is in front of you, and you're working with it. How do they know that they can give you better if you're not grateful for what's in front of you? If you can't recognize the good in front of you, how can you upgrade? And yeah, that's kind of all I have to say. Thank you for listening. Please be patient with yourself. Please make sure that you're drinking lots of water, that you're eating well, that you're sleeping well. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great next 2 weeks. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.